Joy is the wheel who spend no big, no big, no spend. So do you remember the days of slavery?
Winston Rodney, the man the world knows as Burning Spear, is a walking contradiction, a peaceful messenger of Rastafari who carries a rhetorical torch that has scorched the earth of the music industry for over 5 decades.
He takes and die for a sightseeing.
To understand Burning Spear is to understand the soul of Jamaica, not as a tourist destination of sun-drenched beaches, but as a battlefield for the minds and souls of the African diaspora. At 80 years old, Rodney is the last of the big three, alongside Bob Marley and Peter Tosh, who turned reggae into a global spiritual revolution. Yet, unlike Marley, who became a symbol of universal peace, or Tosh, who was the militant rebel, Spear became something more enigmatic, the keeper of the temple. The name Burning Spear was not chosen lightly. Rodney took it from Jomo Kenyatta, the first president of Kenya and a leader of the Mau Mau uprising. From the very beginning, Rodney's project was one of decolonization. He didn't want to sing about romance or the simple joys of life. He wanted to excavate the trauma of the Middle Passage and reconstruct the African identity through sound. But as his legend grew, so did the friction. The story of Burning Spear is not just one of musical triumph, but of a man who has lived in a state of constant public warfare with the Babylon system he sings about. The prophet of St. Anne's Bay in the Studio One Exodus. The origin story of Burning Spear is almost biblical. Growing up in St. Anne's Bay, the same birthplace as Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley, Rodney was immersed in a specific kind of rural Jamaican mysticism. In 1969, a chance encounter with Marley led Rodney to Studio One, the legendary hit factory run by Coxsone Dodd. It was here that the spear began to sharpen. His early work was unlike anything the island had heard. While other artists were leaning into the upbeat tempo of rocksteady, Spear brought a heavy, sluggish, and hypnotic dread sound. His voice wasn't that of a singer in the traditional sense. It was the voice of a village elder chanting around a fire. However, the first spark of controversy ignited here. Rodney soon felt that the commercial demands of the studio were stifling the spiritual purity of his message. He felt the producers were skimming the cream off his labor. This started a lifelong pattern of deep-seated distrust toward the gatekeepers of the music industry. Rodney wasn't just looking for a hit, he was looking for respect and autonomy, two things rarely granted to young black artists in the 1970s. The Marcus Garvey paradox, success and betrayal. In 1975, Burning Spear released Marcus Garvey, an album that remains arguably the greatest roots reggae record ever made. It was a sonic earthquake. Songs like The Ghost and Slavery Days didn't just mention history, they channeled the ghosts of ancestors. But with the success came a betrayal that Rodney would never forget. The album's distributor, Island Records, decided to remix the album for a white, rock-oriented audience in the UK. They sped up the tracks, lightened the bass, and added shimmer to the production to make it more palatable for radio. This became known as the Garvey's Ghost controversy. Rodney was furious. To him, altering the tempo of the music was a form of cultural erasure. He saw it as a literal whitewashing of his spiritual testimony. This incident solidified his worldview, that the music industry was a predatory beast designed to dilute the black experience for profit. He spent the next 40 years trying to claw back control of his art, leading to a reputation for being one of the most difficult and litigious men in reggae. The independent king or the isolated warrior? By the 1990s, Burning Spear had done something almost no other artist of his era had managed. He went truly independent. Alongside his wife and business partner, Sonia Rodney, he established Burning Spear Records. This was a monumental achievement in self-reliance, aligning perfectly with the teachings of Marcus Garvey. However, this independence came with a side of intense public vitriol. Rodney began to use his platform, and later social media, to name and shame anyone he believed was bootlegging his music. He has famously called out some of the biggest names in reggae distribution, accusing them of being vultures and thieves. He didn't just stop at corporations. He often targeted former associates and peers. To his supporters, he is a hero fighting for the laborer's wages. To his detractors, he has become a man consumed by a me-against-the-world mentality that has burned many bridges. This isolationist stance created a massive rift in the reggae community. While modern artists were collaborating and building networks, Spear withdrew into his own fortress. He has frequently warned his fans on Facebook and YouTube not to buy his classic albums from major retailers, claiming the money never reaches him. This has led to a bizarre situation where one of the world's greatest living legends actively discourages people from engaging with his historical catalog unless it is purchased through his personal channels. The retirement and the resurrection. In 2016, the world thought the spear had finally stopped burning. Rodney announced his retirement, citing exhaustion and a desire to live a quiet life after decades on the road. He performed final shows that saw fans traveling from across the globe, paying premium prices to witness the end of an era. It was a somber, beautiful goodbye. Then a few years later, the retirement vanished. Spear returned to the stage and the studio, announcing new tours and the long-awaited album, No Destroyer. While the majority of fans were elated to see the return of the teacher, a vocal minority felt the retirement was a cynical marketing ploy to drive up demand and ticket prices for those 2016 shows. Rodney's response was characteristically spiritual. He claimed that the people and the Almighty called him back. Whether it was a change of heart or a calculated business move, it added another layer to the complex persona of a man who refuses to follow any script but his own. The modern conflict, Spear versus the new school. Perhaps the most fascinating controversy in Rodney's later years is his outspoken disdain for the direction of modern Jamaican music. Burning Spear is a traditionalist in the strictest sense of the word. He views the rise of dancehall, with its digital rhythms, focus on slackness, vulgarity, and celebration of materialism, as a poison. He hasn't been shy about criticizing the younger generation for abandoning the roots. This has led to accusations that he is out of touch or an angry elder who doesn't understand the evolution of the genre. Young artists often point out that the conditions Rodney sang about, poverty, police brutality, and systemic oppression, are still being addressed in dancehall, just in a different language. But for Spear, the music is a sacred vessel. To use a rhythm for anything other than social upliftment is, in his eyes, a sacrilege. This gatekeeper energy has made him a divisive figure among Jamaican youth who respect his history but find his rigidness alienating. The eternal flame. When you strip away the lawsuits, the social media rants, and the industry feuds, you are left with the music. And the music is undeniable. Burning Spear's sound is built on a one-drop rhythm that feels like a heartbeat. His horn sections, often arranged in minor keys, provide a mournful, haunting backdrop to his lyrics. When he sings "Remember the Days of Slavery," he isn't asking you to recall a fact in a history book. He is asking you to feel the chains. His live performances are less like concerts and more like religious ceremonies. He often plays the percussion himself, entering a trance-like state, his white hair flowing like a halo. In these moments, the controversies fade. It doesn't matter who he sued or which distributor he insulted. What matters is the frequency he vibrates on. He represents an era of reggae that was about more than just a catchy beat. It was about the survival of a people. Burning Spear remains a lion in winter. He is a man who would rather burn a bridge than cross it if it means compromising his dignity or his pocketbook. He is a reminder that the one love image of reggae is often a polished lie. The reality is much more rugged, much more contentious, and much more human. He is a prophet who isn't afraid to get his hands dirty in the business of the world, a singer who values his silence as much as his song, and a warrior who is still, after all these years, holding the spear high against the horizon.